Oh my gosh, guess what? I'm finally getting to do one of my cosplay wish lists! Alright, that's exciting, but of course you guys don't know what's on my cosplay wish list, so let's get into it. So for the longest time, my favorite Disney princess has always been Cinderella, and I like most variations of the movies. I haven't seen them all. There might be some I don't like, but I don't know because I haven't seen them all. But the one that I love and actually think I look a little bit like the main character is Ever After, the Cinderella story with Drew Barrymore. I have a similar facial structure to Drew Barrymore, so I thought that the Ever After gown would be a perfect dress for me. Not to mention, I love it. Like, love it. So, I've been wanting to do it, but at the same time, I have been putting it off because honestly, that seems like it would be hard to do. But I have seen some people in the sewing community saying that a tip that they have is even if you don't think you're ready to start working on a project, just start working on it. Because if you don't think you're ready, you never think you're ready and you will never do it. So I decided to give it a go. But before we get started, I do have a couple of caveats that I want to go through real fast. One, I meant for this to be a project that I worked on throughout the year in 2024. It is now 2026, and I wound up kind of putting it down and picking it up a couple of times throughout the years. And in the beginning, you'll see me talking about the annual project. It's because it was still 2024 and I was still expecting to do the project in 2024, but it did not work out that way. Second, because it took 2 years, there are some missing videos. I will be going through and hopefully trying to talk about what I did for each of the things that are missing, but we'll see how well I can find everything. And third of all, this project took a lot of time to do, filming and otherwise, so I do have to separate this project into 2 parts. This part is the first part, and will be the making of the gowns that are the undergowns. So I will have a shift, and I will have I want to say it's a Gamora, but I think that's the name of the Guardians of the Galaxy character, so I don't remember what it's actually called. And then in the second part, which will be coming out hopefully a week from when I post this one, is the actual making of the beautiful top gown. So, without further ado, let's go back to January 2024. Alright, so it is the morning of December 31st, 2023. I've just got up, so you'll have to forgive the trash mess that is my hair, because I am actually still in bed, but that's neither here nor there. And yes, I did mention the year, because I'm not sure if I'm going to finish this project in 2024 or 2025, or maybe even 2026. I don't know when I'm going to finish this project because I do not want to rush myself. And also, my New Year's resolution for 2024 is to do 1 project per month, which means that this project is actually going to be in the background, so I have no idea when I'm going to finish it. I'm not going to rush myself. I really want this to be perfect. But this morning I thought maybe I could look into possibly starting, because the year 2024 hasn't started, which means I don't have to start on my resolution until tomorrow. So I thought I'd get a head start on the Ever After gown. And what I was doing this morning is I was researching the Ever After gown, which I actually have my computer over here, which is why I keep looking in this direction instead of at the camera. Alright, so we gotta start out with when exactly Ever After took place. Ever After supposedly takes place in France in 1512. So you would think that the dress that I'm trying to make should be from the 16th century. However, she specifically says that the dress that she wants is her mother's dress, which means that it's actually probably from the late 15th century. So I went ahead and looked up the 15th century gowns, late 15th century gowns, and unfortunately, I could only really find Italian gowns. There wasn't really much about the French side of things, but I was able to get a good idea of what exactly this pieces of this dress should be. So we're going to go ahead and break it down by the different pieces. With this gown, there is technically 3 different pieces, not including the wings, because that's not historically accurate, as we all know. But there should be the chemise, which is the undergown that would be worn close to the skin, so that you wouldn't dirty your dress. There is kind of a middle gown, which is a dress that you would wear inside, but is not a fully created gown. So you would have to wear another dress on top of it, which would be the overdress. The research that I've done actually has her wearing a pair of stays with the dress. The stays that they used did not exist at the time. The type of stays that might have existed, which I don't believe they did until mid to late 16th century, were more tubular in fashion than this would be. The one that she uses is much later than the one that would actually be. So I think my plan is, instead of making a pair of stays, I'll just make the middle dress, which will have the structure that is needed to hold up the fairy wings, which is actually why they made the stays, is to hold up the wings. Now I gotta figure out what part is what. So, based on historical dressing, the puffy part of the sleeves would have been part of actually the chemise. The chemise would be visible through the tubular shape of the sleeves. However, there is one thing to notice. The sleeves of the chemise, or what would be the chemise, are the same fabric as in the skirt of the overdress. Now, that probably would not be the case because the chemise would have been a much cheaper fabric that they were willing to let get damaged and all that stuff. But, you know, I like to try to get a historically accurate but movie accurate looking dress, so I will probably make my chemise out of the same fabric as I use on the overskirt of the gown. Another sort of inaccuracy of this gown is the oversleeves that go over the chemise were actually supposed to be part of the undergown, or the middle gown, or whatever it's called. So it would have actually been more closer to the undergown than the overgown. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the undergown this beautiful white fabric that's underneath, and I will not put sleeves on it. I'm going to go ahead and attach the sleeves to the overgown because they more naturally fit the overgown, and it's what it looks like in the movie. So I'm going to do a silver chemise with silver pleated fabric, which I have to go get from Joann's. And then I'm going to do a pure white middle gown or undergown, whatever we want to consider it, of silk or taffeta or something like that. And then I will figure out what the heck I'm going to make that overgown out of once I get to it, because honestly there is a lot going on this overgown that I still need to figure out how to do, so we will see. But I think what I have not decided yet is whether or not this like feathered the feathered piece on the front here is part of the undergown or the overgown. I want to say that it's part of the overgown because it's just the color that matches the overgown. But the way that the overgown closes in this time period would normally be kind of in the front with some, like, the one
person that I saw getting ready had it lacing in the front. She, of course, didn't have a maidservant to help her. So in this version, it laces in the back rather than in the front. And I'm not sure how accurate that is, but again, I wasn't able to find anything from France, so we're just gonna have to go with it. And if we're gonna have it lace in the back anyway, I might as well go ahead and put this bit on the overpiece. It just looks like it should be on the underpiece though. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to think of that. But that is neither here nor there. First of all, I need to get the chemise done. So I'm gonna look up how to make a chemise with very poofy sleeves so I can figure out how much fabric I need.
I don't know what I just did. I clicked the button and changed something. But this is a cream color, which I think even it's a bit shiny, so it's still giving off that kind of silvery look. But it's looking kind of antique-y, which is what I wanted so much. So that's gonna be perfect. The only problem is they only had 4 yards of it. The silver fabric, they had 6 or 7, I can't quite remember, looking online. And I think that the 4 yards will be enough for the shift or chemise or whatever you want to call it. But I do not believe that it's going to be enough to also do the skirt. So I think what my plan is going to be is to make the shift and see how much fabric I have left. If I have a lot of fabric, I won't order more. But if I don't, obviously I need to order more. So that is my plan. So I'm going to go home and work on the shift. First thing I need to do is make the pattern. I do have the link to the pattern on the screen now, but I didn't have the film of making it, so I've got a smaller version here. It's probably easier to see anyway, and you can get a more detailed description if you go to the link. The only thing I don't have here is the sleeve pattern because it's literally just a rectangle. Okay, so I just noticed I have a not very significant problem, but I do have an issue, and that is that the fabric crinkling goes by the width of the fabric rather than by the length of the fabric, which is what I was expecting. So it's not the end of the world. It just means that my original plan of not having to sew the shoulders is not going to happen because the crinkling needs to be down the length of the body. So what I'm actually going to do, rather than the back length as I had planned, is I'm going to measure out the width doubled, and then I can use just the 45 inches as the length of the chemise, which I was planning on doing 42 inches, so 3 inches more is not the end of the world. It's actually not bad. So I think that's going to be what I plan to do. So it's not going to change my pattern at all. It's just going to affect the cut on the fold for the shoulder, if that makes sense. So I sat on the floor and measured out all of the widths of my fabric and then measured it again so that I wouldn't get an uneven cut, and tried my best to make a straight line with these tiny little scissors because I can't find my sewing scissors ever. And then I did it all over again. Okay, well, I've cut out all my pieces, and I was a bit lazy today, so I didn't sew them. I totally could have finished the whole chemise in one day, but I didn't. So now it's gonna get put to the side because tomorrow's the first day of January, which means I need to start working on that project because, of course, I picked a thing that was complicated enough that it'll probably take me the whole month. But at least I have the pieces cut out, so it shouldn't take too long to go ahead and sew them together. I might sneak it in while I'm still working on the other project, but we'll see. We'll see. Because again, trying to keep to my goal. That's one of my New Year's resolutions is to actually do one project a month. So We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Happy St. Patrick's Day! I actually decided, after looking at the fabric some more, that I think I can order the fabric that I used for the sleeves, but it doesn't match the fabric that I got for the bodice. But also, the fabric that I got for the bodice, after looking at it again, doesn't match what I needed. So what I wound up doing is I actually wound up ordering online some more fabric for the bodice. I'm hoping it's enough because it was in large squares, which I believe were 1/4 of a yard by 1/4 of a yard. So I'm hoping that since it's such a small area, it'll be okay. And I hope I think I got 3 of them. So I'm hoping that it'll be enough for the front and the back of the bodice. But I'm waiting to continue working on the sleeve portion or the shift portion because I don't know if the new bodice fabric is going to match the sleeve fabric, and it's got to be at least in the same family because the sleeve fabric is the same as the skirt fabric, and the skirt fabric has to match. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's gotta match. So I'm waiting to finish working on that because I honestly don't want to put the work in if I'm just gonna have to get something else to do anyway. So that fabric is not supposed to arrive until mid-April. Hopefully I'll be able to work on the dress before mid-April, and if I can, I'll probably just work on the middle dress. I don't think it'll be a big deal working on the middle dress if I haven't finished the shift, because the shift is just supposed to be a layer against the skin. It's not really supposed to change anything shape-wise. And since the middle layer is the structure layer, it's going to be the thing that changes the shape. So I think I can work on the middle layer without having finished the shift layer, but I cannot work on the upper layer without having finished the middle layer. And that's a whole thing. While editing the video for my Ever After Part 1, I realized that I really don't have a lot of film for the making of the shift. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about real fast what exactly I did for the shift. So once the pieces were cut out, I literally just sewed them together with one seam. I didn't do anything to finish the seams because back in those days, they wouldn't really finish the seams because there was so much skirt fabric. It would take so much time, and there was really no point to it. So I didn't finish the seams, which is fine for this particular fabric because this particular fabric does not fray. So I wasn't concerned about the fraying, and I really didn't want to spend all that time finishing the seams. Then I did a simple rolled hem, and I hand stitched that into place because I didn't want it to show through to the other sides. You can see here, you can hardly see the stitching. So I did my best to make sure that didn't show through at all. I did a very similar thing for the cording at the top. I just also added in some holes so that I could lace this cord in because this neckline is actually probably as big as my current neckline. So if I didn't put cording in, it would never stay on. So I did put the cording in. You can see in the back here, the cording, I didn't bother when I was just hanging it up. I didn't bother tightening it. So you can see in the back here, it's just kind of hanging loosely. And then for the sleeves, I have a simple cuff. It's just a rectangle that's the right size for my sleeve. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that I sewed it on with a zigzag stitch only to keep some of that stretch because this is a stretchy fabric and I was a little concerned about possibly losing some of the stretch. And then I turned the cuff over the raw edges and again hand sewed it into place so that you wouldn't be able to see it on the right side. So there you have it, there's my shift. Now let's get on to the middle gown.
So now we'll start working on the Italian Renaissance gown structure pattern. This one is another online pattern, and I did put the link down below, but it's kind of hard to read, so it will also be in the summary. I will mention this later on probably, but one thing to note that I didn't realize is that the pattern that we have here is for a gown that goes down to the waist, rather than in the movie it's actually an empire waist, which is at the underbust. So I am making this pattern too long. If you want to do it yourself, I would highly recommend you make sure that you make it short enough to go to the underbust, not the waist. Alright, here's mock-up number 1 of the middle bodice for the Ever After gown. I already forgot what it's called. Normally I would not have the bust be this tight, but the shape of that gown is very tubular, so I think that it being this tight is fine. The only thing is it is a little tight up here, so I'm popping out a little too much. I think that will be fixed when I open up the neckline like it's supposed to be in the actual Ever After gown. I will say that I think I might have to bring up the sleeve a little bit, just so I can stop this little side pocket of skin from popping out. And then of course I need to fix this, the neckline. So, and then I also need to add boning and I guess probably some buckram, though I'm not really sure that that's gonna be a thing. So we'll see about that. The back looks fine as far as I'm aware. I can't see anything wrong with the back all that much. It seems to fit just fine, so I'm not too concerned about altering that. I didn't take my hair out of it, so not too concerned about altering that, though again, I will have to change the neckline to fit. Sorry, I accidentally turned off my camera. I will have to change the neckline in the back to fit the neckline of this dress. And I know it's scrunching up in the front here. It's because I was tying it really tight. I don't actually plan on having the closure be in the front, but I heard that that makes it easier to actually do alterations if you need to. Probably the next mock-up I'll put it in the back because to me it doesn't seem to really make much of a difference one way or the other. Okay, here's mock-up number 1.5. You can see I really only adjusted this one panel over here. This panel is still the same. And then I actually did wind up widening the bust a little because I was, after thinking about it a little bit, decided that I was actually having a little bit of trouble breathing as it was before. So that was a bit of an issue that I didn't want to have to deal with. So I went ahead and widened the bust a little tiny bit. I still might have to widen the bust a little bit more after looking at some other people's kirtles and stuff like that. Right. The other thing I noticed is the sleeve I think is the right size. Surprisingly, it's not falling down or anything like that. It probably will. But I think I cut the neckline a little bit wide, so I do need to add back a little bit of the neckline just right here. And sorry, my bust is a bit red because I've been scratching it. That is not anything indecent, I promise. So anyway, I need to cut this bit just a little bit wider, so it's a little bit more of a wide neckline. There's not so much of this immediate curve. And then of course I also need to put the boning in, but I kind of wanted to see the fit first and see if there's anything I needed to change. So I knew if I needed to make a new pattern piece or anything like that. Unfortunately, this does mean I need to go to the store and get some more of this kind of cotton because I am officially out of mock-up fabric. So I did go to the store to get more fabric, but wound up deciding that I didn't want to make another mock-up and just decided to work on the actual project. So here you see me sewing in my boning channels. They are much wider than I normally would make them because the only bones that I had on hand were the kinds that are actually used for hoop skirts. So I'm going to regret that later, but it's what I had on hand. Now, because I'm an idiot and I cut my bones just the same length as my boning channel, I had to use a buttonhole foot to close the bottom of each channel. Don't do that. Make sure that you make your bones shorter than your boning channels. Otherwise, they will work their way through and you will have to suffer. After attaching the fashion fabric to the lining fabric, I wanted to make sure that nothing from the lining fabric would show through, as I often have that problem. So I turned the fashion fabric over the bottom of the lining fabric and hand sewed it in place because I didn't want the stitching to be on the right side.
Ma'am, I need that. So it's June 1st, which means it's a new month and I want to start a new project. But the fabric that I'm using for the Ever After gown is the fabric that I want to use for the new project. So I have to get to a certain point in the Ever After gown before I can move on to that project. So I've gotten pretty far. It's the middle dress that the fabric I want to use. So if I can just have my piece, please. No! So I have pretty much finished making this bodice piece. The only thing I'm missing currently, you'll have to forgive if you can see it, the cat hair, because Luthien was just laying on it. The only thing I'm missing is the closure in the back, as well as some sort of opening for the wings. I am considering not putting the opening for the wings at all, because I have seen some people just kind of hook it over the top of the bodice, so I'll probably hold off on doing that for actually a while because I don't exactly know how I want to do that. But I do need to put the closure in. I was gonna wait to put the closure in until after I've put the skirt in so I can kind of carry it down as needed, because I'm probably gonna need to bring a little bit of it into the skirt. However, I need to know exactly how long the skirt needs to be so I can cut out the panels. And unfortunately, when I put this guy on at the moment, because it's supposed to be flat-chested and I'm not, if it's not fully closed, my chest is actually pushing it higher than it would normally be on my waist. So I don't actually know where it's sitting on my hips or on my waist or any of that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the closure in to the back, and then I can go ahead and put the skirts on it, which I don't think the skirts will take too long. The main thing I think is gonna take a minute is the hem, because I don't exactly know how I'm going to do the embroidered hem, and I don't expect to finish it entirely. As long as I can cut out the skirts, then I can use the rest of the fabric for anything else that I want, which includes the next month project. So I'm gonna get back to work and figure out how exactly I want to put the closures on. Also need to find some lacing, but that's kind of I can use whatever I have for the moment and then just buy that later on. It's not like it's gonna make a difference if I don't buy that now. One thing I do want to mention, I probably already stated that using the wax on the metal bones did not work at all.
Hello, editing Eliza here because I realized that I mentioned something in the video that apparently got deleted. The wax tips that I tried to use for the boning, I tried to melt a candle and put wax on the edge of the bones to try to stop the bones from working through the fabric and then coming out and stabbing me in the side. But that was not a good idea. I should have just shortened the bones. So in the future, do not use a candle wax to try to keep your bones from poking through. It will not work.
I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's staining the edges. It kind of melted and staining the edges of the fabric. This is the inside of the corset, so it's not the end of the world, but you probably can't see it at all. Oh yeah, you can kind of see it. Let's see if I can't get it to... Ooh. So you see this here, that spot? That's because I was trying to iron it to kind of iron out some of the wrinkles on it, and unfortunately the wax came through to the fashion layer. Luckily it only came through around the armhole, which will probably get some staining anyway, but I wound up stopping the ironing. I didn't want to continue ironing just in case, so it is a little wrinkly, unfortunately, from all the movement I've been doing with it, because I had every intention of ironing it at the end, but now I'm too afraid to. So unfortunately it will be a little wrinkly. I might try steaming it at some point just to get a little bit more of that out, but I am really afraid of the wax leaking all over the place into the fashion fabric. So don't do what I did.
Then I went ahead and hand sewed in some grommets. I really didn't want to use the metal ones because I just didn't think it would look good at all, even though it's not supposed to be visible. Then I added a bit of interfacing to the bottom of the skirt, the kind that goes into quilts, and sewed it in. That's what's going to make that quilted hem.
So I got all dressed up. I even tried on my Drew Barrymore look. I got all dressed up to take pictures of the shift, and I forgot that shifts are pretty much a blab, so it looked horrible. But I needed the pictures anyway to put in the build book, so we're just gonna go with it. I am currently wearing what I have so far. I have the shift dress thing that was made for the sake of the sleeves. This is the sleeve material that is visible on the Ever After dress, so I used this fabric for the shift, if only because I needed these sleeves. And then I also have the structure bodice. I'm working on the skirt, which is where this week has been working on. Let me just grab that real fast. So the skirt's real easy, just two rectangles sewn together. I have already completed, I just completed this morning the quilted hem on this skirt. I'll probably have to redo some of it, not redo it, but in the front of the dress, I noticed that there is, oh, there's still pins in this. Oh, well. At the front of the dress, I noticed that the quilting is a little bit closer together than at the back and sides of the dress, but it's only the part that's visible through the slit of the skirt. So I didn't want to do that until I figured out exactly where to put it, because I don't want to do it all the way around. But this is just a wide, real wide skirt. What I'm doing right now, which is one of the reasons I have this whole outfit on, is I am measuring, because I hemmed the skirt before attaching it to the bodice, I'm gonna figure out how far down I need to cut the skirt so that it'll attach to the bodice at a good height. And then I'll hem it, and then I will do the pleats, which I don't remember what they're called because they didn't really give a very good name. But that is the plan. Once that's done, I can move on to the decorative dress, which means I only have like 6 months to do the decorative dress. I'm kind of freaking out a little bit, but if I get to work, I can do it. It was more complicated than I expected it to be.
A historically accurate gown of this time period has these kind of accordion pleats. So I've already hand sewed each of them, but now I'm just pulling them into the kind of pleats that they're supposed to be. And then hand sewing them to the bodice at the bottom, just by catching the portion that should be meeting the bodice.
So it has been almost a year since I worked on my Ever After dress, mainly because I realized I made the middle of the dress, this is the middle dress, I made the middle dress, the torso is too long. So as you can see, it ends at the waist, which is fine. As a corset, it'll work well. The problem is the overdress is actually an empire waist, so it needs to be up here. And if I have my middle dress with the seam for the skirt at the waist, then the seam is very obvious and it does not look good. The other thing I had done is I had gathered the skirt to the waistband, which looked weird because it should be flat in the front as per the movie. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to measure up how much I need to go higher for the skirt, and I'll just sew the skirt, hand sew it onto the empire waistline on the corset because I cannot shorten this corset. It is already boned. I would have to take apart the whole thing and that's not happening. So I'm just gonna sew it at the empire waist, but first I have to measure where that'll be. And then I'll just attach it, the skirt, probably flat up until here, and then the rest of it will just be gathered in the back. And no, I'm not holding it fully closed because I don't need to at the moment. So we're gonna go with probably, let's see, there. That's probably a good spot for it. And that'll be about 3 inches. So I'll probably put it about 3 inches up from where I had it originally. Measuring it again, we're actually gonna do 3.5 inches. And hopefully I have enough room on the actual skirt to do that because the skirt is already hemmed and I really don't want to have to re-hem that skirt. We'll see. It has now been almost 2 years since I started working on this project. Actually, it's probably 2 years since I last worked on this project. But I promised myself I was going to try to apply for the cosplay contest using this dress in 2 months. So I need to get back to work. And first of all, because it's been 2 years since I've worked on this dress, I need to actually figure out if it still fits. If it doesn't fit anymore, I'm gonna be so mad. Who in the world decided to use these laces? These laces are so hard to keep. Ugh. Okay. Okay, so it's not fully tied in the back, and I think I could probably tie it more. It's just that I don't feel like struggling with the lacing right now, especially because I'm gonna take it off in a moment. Okay, there we go. Alright, so this is where I was last check-in. Well, technically I had a skirt on this dress last check-in, but I realized at the time that the bodice is too low. I need the bodice to be like here. But of course I didn't mark anything when I decided that, so I am putting it on now for 1, to make sure it still fits, and for 2, because I need to mark it to see both where exactly I want it to sit on here and where I need the skirt to sit so that it still touches the floor. Right now I'm wearing a pair of combats that I have, which probably have about the same heel height as her dress would. Of course you can't see it, so I don't know why I bothered showing, but I have chalk and I have the dress, so I need to figure out where my underbust is, because the skirt needs to be exactly where the underbust is. I'm sure you can't see that because it's yellow, but I didn't want to risk using a color that might be more visible if it doesn't come off. Even though it's chalk, I have had some issues where for whatever reason I couldn't get the chalk off. And then I have the super wrinkly skirt because it's just been kind of sitting out places, which I made the awful mistake of using pencil on, so that's gonna be fun to get rid of. Let's see, I might have already fixed the measurements on this one. Let's see. It's just barely not touching the ground if I go from here. And I think that's okay, because then you'll get a little hint of the shoe underneath. I think the measurements I have right now for the skirt, ow! I don't know why there's so many pins in this thing. Okay. So I think what I'm gonna do, now I gotta figure out how exactly I wanna sew this on. So there's that part there. So definitely with the front, needs to be flat, because that was one of the problems I had with the skirt before, is I had the front pleated and it didn't look right. But if the front is flat and then the back is gathered, it'll create a lot more of a tail kind of look, and hopefully that'll be okay. Hopefully it won't create too much bulk in the back, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, I have to redo all of the research that I did when I first started this project so that I can make this historically accurate, or ish, because right now this part is not historically accurate. This is just fixing a mistake, because it's, again, been 2 years and I don't remember how exactly to do it. But I did get this really cool thing. I am really afraid that it might be the wrong color, because there's these, can you see them? These little metal bits that are used for goldwork embroidery. And unfortunately, the problem with the champagne dress is that it's very hard to find a matching color. So like, you probably can't really tell from all the way over there, but the metal is a bit too yellow. I've seen people use silver, but I thought that was too light or too gray toned. And this is actually the second batch I got, because the first batch was like actually gold, even though it didn't look gold in the picture. And so I'm hoping that it'll turn out okay in the end once everything is done. But good thing about this particular provider, if I hate it, it only takes them about a week to send out more. So I can get a different color if I absolutely need to, and it's not super expensive. It'll just really suck. Anyway, okay, so now I have markings on this. So this part will have to be hand sewn because the boning is in the way. I can't just machine sew it in place when the boning is there. I made this dress before realizing that you need to make the bones shorter than the boning channel. Hopefully that won't be a big issue. Also, I'm recalling now that I believe the wings are technically supposed to be in this bodice. Like, there's supposed to be a hole in this bodice that allows the wings to get attached in the back, but I think I probably won't do that because I'd like to be able to wear the dress without the wings. Also, I just found out that the day that I'm planning on wearing this dress for the cosplay contest is also when Orlando Bloom is gonna be at the convention, and he's only gonna be at the convention the one day. So like, I already paid for autographs to see him, but there is the concern that the wings on this dress is going to be in the way of the line to go get the autographs. So I'm trying to decide if I want to go ahead and make a smaller set of wings. Like, I've seen some people do this cosplay with both a large set of wings and a smaller set of wings for the sake of being able to walk around the convention, but at the same time, I want the big set of wings, and I am more concerned about getting the big set of wings than I am about, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Because the original costume, which with the auction pictures, the original costume does have like a buttonhole kind of situation where you can put the wings into, but if you do that, you can't take the wings off unless you like fully undo the whole dress and stuff like that. So yeah, this is gonna be an interesting thing to kind of figure out exactly how I'm gonna do it. Also, why is this so hard to remove?
And I wound up just whip stitching the front in place so that it would be flat against the bodice.
So I was just looking at the skirt, and I think what I'm doing is going to work, but I think I've made a mistake. I forgot that there was one side of the skirt that had some issues. There was a stain on it, and there was also I had started the hem at the top and then was going to cover it by the fact that the skirt was going to be shorter. Now the skirt's not going to be shorter. So the problem now is that there is some French knots in this part of the skirt, which was going to be hidden if I had put that part of the skirt in the back. But unfortunately, it seems that I didn't realize, I forgot about that, and of course, by accident, I have put both the stain and the French knots literally in the center front. So I think I'm going to have to seam rip everything off and then redo it. I'm not happy about this. So my darling executive producer has decided that I need to take a break for a little bit. Isn't she pretty? Okay, break time's over, I guess.
And on the back I wound up eyeing some pleats just to make it so that it fit, and whip stitched that in place as well, which was not fun trying to whip stitch through multiple pleats.
Alright, so here we have the shift and the middle gown, which I still can't remember the name of, but I said it at some point during this video, so hopefully you know what the name is, even if I don't. So let's start with the shift. This is the bottom layer, and literally I only made it for the sleeves, and also for historical accuracy, they would have worn a shift underneath their gowns because it's supposed to protect the gown from the dirt and grime and stuff that would be on your skin. You would only wash the shift, not the gown. I think I did a very good job on the shift. It's also the first thing I did, so I probably spent the most time on the finishings. I didn't feel rushed at all at this point. So, I do really like it. The other thing I like about making a shift like this, I can reuse this. I can use it on any project that I like that actually needs a shift. And it's nice and shiny and like a nice white gold kind of champagne-ish color. So I do really like the shift. The only problem, normally shifts would be made out of a breathable material like cotton. This is not, this is polyester. It is from Joann's. Most of the things are from Joann's. So but that's the only way I could really get this beautiful color that was going to match the original gown. Now on this side, this is the one that I actually, the reason pretty much that I put the dress down for a very long time is I was mad at this dress. So this dress, the actual bottom of the bodice is here, whereas the waistline of the bodice is up here. I think that the movie put on a higher waistline than would be historically accurate, but since I was using a historically accurate pattern, I had a lower waistband than the movie. So that was a bit of a shock to me and was very annoying and made my life a little bit of a problem. But otherwise, there are some issues with this gown specifically. The main issue is my fault. I did not use very good marking material. Like up here, there's pencil on it. I had hoped that it would wash off, but I was unable to get it off. So there's still pencil markings on it. And I think that might have docked me a little bit. I did already enter into the cosplay contest, which you'll see me talking about a lot in the next video. But anyway, so I think that did dock me a little bit. And then also the yellow mark where the waistband goes is still there. Now the other problem with this gown, I think I already mentioned it, is that I did not, at the time of making the bodice of this gown, know about the fact that you're supposed to make your bones shorter than your boning channel. I always make them so they're like almost the perfect length, and so what they do is they saw through the bottom of the gown. This particular one has already lost 4 bones just in the one day that I wore it. So I wore it at MegaCon, and while I was walking around at MegaCon, I started feeling the bones like literally digging into my skin, even through my shift. So I had red marks on my skin, so I did wind up having to take those bones out while I was at MegaCon, but because of the shift, I didn't reveal anything to anybody. I just was able to lift up my skirt and pull the bones out. But good news, I didn't really need the bones in order to hold up the wings. So there is that. I probably could have just not put them in at all and been fine, which in reality, historically, they would not have bones in these bodices anyway. I just put it in to match the movie portion. The other thing about this gown, it wrinkles really easily. The skirt is very wrinkly. And traveling with it, I did try to do some like steaming, but I don't think I did a great job. This is a wedding fabric, so I'm sure it could have been better steamed than I did, but at that point I was kind of running out of time to finish the overgown, so I didn't really have enough time to really make sure that all of the wrinkles were out. I do really like the hem of this gown. The padded bit of it is cute. I don't think it's as padded as the movies, but I do think I did a very good job of that. I'm super happy with it. I did wind up, when I first did this gown, I put the wrong kind of lacing in because this gown is my structure gown and it really needs to have a strong lace that isn't going to slip through, whereas before I was using a lace that was like silk, so it was like slipping out real easily, but when I used this kind of rope-like lacing from Michaels, it worked so much better. I also wound up doing a not so historically accurate thing in pleating the gown. I think they would have, in the way that I pleated the gown, the way that they would have done it was how I originally did it, but I was afraid that the fact that it was so high up on the gown and would be against the other boning, I was afraid it was going to create too much bulk in the back, so I did wind up doing a more flat pleat than what would be historically accurate. But there you have the 2 base gowns for my ever after dress, and I hope that you will come back hopefully next week to see the rest of the project, the actual ever after gown, to see how it turned out.